So my name is Alex Stedman. I'm a curator and organizer, and one of the organizers of A Pond is a Reverse of an Island.
Hi, my name is Sanne Oorthuizen.
Hello, I'm Mumtaz. I'm an artist and one of the organizers of A Pond Reverse of an Island, and I'm from Afghanistan and currently living in Jogja.
So we're part of A Pond is the Reverse of an Island, which is a collective platform working in solidarity with a group of refugees living in Kalideres in Jakarta. We're more than 3, so we're maybe just representing the collective today, but we are also, our group is bigger, so there's Fajar Rianto, there's Anang Sabtoto, there's Badan Kajian Pertanahan, there is Timil Budiarto from Life Patch, there's Sigit Budi Santoso, Rifandi Nugroho, and Bakudapan Food Study Group. And our aim is, we have different aims, let's say. So we've been working together since, in some constellation or another, since the beginning of last year, really right before the pandemic. So that changed a lot of things, but we can talk about that more in a bit. But in general, we are working on, let's say, acting together. So supporting, using artistic strategies, basically, in artistic practice to support the daily needs of that particular community and together with them. And also to raise awareness about the situation of refugees in Indonesia at large, and to speculate together, to think together about possible alternative futures to do with citizenship, with migration.
On a trip to Jakarta to meet different kind of communities, including visiting the Kalideres refugee camp. And at the time, the initial idea for this project was to spend time in the camp with the community, with the different artists that we're working with. So to go and stay there for like several one-week periods across the year of 2020. But then obviously the pandemic happened, like this was literally just before like the pandemic. So then one of our biggest things has been trying to rethink, how do we make a project that works in solidarity with the community, like let's say a socially engaged community-based art project, when you cannot go there, like when you cannot meet in person. Because also with Corona, like the refugee community is also even more vulnerable. Like they do not have access to healthcare, they do not have any chance of vaccination until now. So it's also a consideration for both them and the artists, like we have to make sure everybody's safe in that case. But we also at the same time didn't want to just leave them. Like we'd gone and visit them, we talk about doing this activity together, then a crisis hits, because actually the situation of the Kalideres camp in particular got worse in that time.
So our activities is not only fundraising and is also to advocate about who is refugee and why they are in Indonesia. I will start off with the specific Kalideres refugees that they live in Kalideres, is because some of the refugees been living in Indonesia for over 8 years, so they kind of run out of their budget that they had, and they had no support from IOM or UNHCR, who are responsible for refugees. And Indonesia is not a party of 1951 convention, so Indonesia basically don't have any responsibility toward refugee in terms of helping them financially. So that's why they rely on different NGOs and like IOM and UNHCR is basically taking care of their cases that they have to resettle in a third country. But while they are waiting here in a transit, and so they run out of money, they basically don't have support, they don't have insurance, they don't have any work permission or like any other activities in terms of having higher education or even go to school. So this basically, there is thousands of refugees march on the street of Jakarta, and they wanted to demand UNHCR that to at least resettle them or help them to have financially support them and have a place to live. So they could not get any answer. Then the government of Jakarta moved them to a military building, so for a temporary till the UNHCR make a decision. And after that they stay there since, and there is no decision made yet about them. And they feel vulnerable because they don't have right under the Indonesia's law.
And so obviously with the Jogja Biennale invitation, it's slightly different. Can we, because here is in Jogja, and we cannot bring the refugee community themselves directly here for various reasons connected to pandemic, also their status, and also budget and many other things. So then we have to think like, how can we use the space and the platform offered by the Biennale to support the community in Calideres, and also to support our activities, the activities of the groups and artists we're working with the camp. So in a way, like, how can we use that opportunity to support this other community? And I think one of the key then, like, they've become like some ethical consideration as well, actually, like how do we end up not only like representing the Calideres community and speaking for them, but how do we make space that they can, how do we create a way that they can speak directly through the platform of the Biennale? So that's a question that we're like struggling with now. Like, there'll be a number of different ways that we're doing that. Like that will include like video interviews with members of the community there, and also lawyers and other refugees, so they can share their voices directly. There's elements like Mumtaz's podcast, which through sound kind of provides particularly the voice of individual refugees from across Indonesia. Yeah, and we're also, I guess in general, we're thinking how to use that platform to share information about the situation of refugees in Indonesia and the Calideres camp in particular. And how can we use it to also fundraise? So there'll be different elements presented within the thing that are kind of activities attempted at fundraising for the community in Calideres. So that includes like Mas Fajar's game that we shared about earlier. Like that's going to be an online game in general, but for the Biennale presentation, is going to make like a ding-dong machine, like an arcade machine. So you can go and like you have to put a coin to play the game, so it shares information and raises funds. There'll also, Mas Anang, who's doing the postcard project with the children in the camp, is thinking to make a place where the audience can send postcards back to children in the camp, so they also build a connection directly between the audience and the community in the camp. Yeah, these video interviews, I think, providing voices for like giving the space for the refugees to talk directly. And also, you know, I think for any text or information sharing about the situation of refugees, we will develop that together with like a refugee writing community that we're in touch with. So it's not only us telling that story.
Yeah, so maybe just to add, I think as a pond is the reverse of an island is happening basically over longer term within Jakarta. We were also thinking about how can we use the platform of the Jogja Biennial that it offers us to support this community and to be in solidarity with the community without, as Alec already said, speaking for them, but also really providing the platform, sharing that platform together with those who would otherwise not have access to it. And in general, I think with the project, what we're trying to do is to really start from the needs of the community, so to not be extractive, because in the end, also within an art system, any kind of art practice builds up capital in a way, whether that's financial capital or social capital. So to not extract from the community, but actually turn it around. So to think about how do we use, or how can we use, not only art practice, which actually is something we really learned a lot from the artists that we're working with, because that is their practice in general already, like working with communities, collaborating. And how can we also use the system of art to support those who would not otherwise have access to that particular system, but also to support activities that are happening outside of an art system, let's say, because I think a lot of what we're doing, for instance, with the Calideres community, it doesn't really matter if it's seen as art or not there, but I think art is interesting because it can offer a backdoor to access, one, working with communities, and two, also to speak to power, which is different if you work for an NGO, which is different if you're a researcher, which is different if you're working for government, for instance. But I think the kind of maybe ambiguous position of artists and art workers also, we should not forget, I think, also those behind the scenes who are working also very hard, like how do we use that ambiguity and towards somehow a common purpose, and share that ambiguity with the people who we not just support, but like who we feel in solidarity with.